all this stuff out, but it's just, man, I've had some big time interviews and like, oh my God, I forgot to hit record. And it's just, you can't capture that magic.
Yeah.
But
Sometimes I suspect like these kinds the relative informal part before you actually officially start might be some of the best dialogue you have.
so it's funny you say that. I just did an episode with a guy named Edgar Jones. He played in the NFL for 7 years. He was an undrafted free agent, but ended up playing for 7 years and had like as a starter. I mean, very impressive. That I just released it maybe 3 weeks ago, but we talked for probably about 15 minutes before I actually started the episode. But I left all that in because it was just a good conversation. So if you listen to that podcast, that specific episode, it starts like in the middle of our it's
You're already into it.
Mm-hmm.
You're already
But
into
it's
it.
good.
Yeah.
You can feel it. Like it's a good one. And then I don't know how much you follow like the Ramsey network, like Dave Ramsey and all that.
Long time. I mean, mostly more so. Several years ago, not recently, but
yeah.
we
So
saw him in Louisville when we first got married.
yeah. So I'm big into it. And Ken Coleman was on my pod, and he's one of the personalities. And but he's more than like their finance. I mean, they have like a whole team of people, but he just happens to be one of their their figures. But he's a big time broadcaster. I mean, that's where he made his bones, and that's kind of like my background and my interest is broadcasting. So to have him on my podcast was kind of like a big time moment. But same thing, we started talking, and then the conversation, the podcast starts, and we're in mid conversation, and it's it's pretty cool.
Well, very cool. I mean, I've seen a few of your episodes, and like it's an impressive list of 100 and some odd now, and I really liked the one you did with Laura. I mean, that was pretty awesome.
Are you talking about my wife, Laura?
Yeah. Should I clarify Laura Foster? I mean,
I had to think because I appreciate that. I've received I recorded 40 in calendar year 25. I published 42 episodes, and I did LinkedIn image, and I'm big. I've been growing a lot on LinkedIn and Instagram specifically, but I made a social media post just highlighting the top stats wise, the top 20 episodes of the year. My wife was one of those episodes. I released it on November 6th. So between November 6th and December 31st, it managed to crack the top 20 in those roughly 2 months or so. But I've received a lot of feedback because my wife I'm definitely a big personality, and she could not be, for everyone that knows her, knows how big that was for her.
You say she's outside her, getting outside her comfort zone, like doing that side of the camera. It's impressive.
Yeah. So I love that episode, and it was fun. I actually since that, over the past 3 months, there's something she says in the episode that I've quoted like in the past 3 months, probably 100 times, where she says, "We are better together," and that's how she says it in the episodes. It is. I mean, we're yin and yang, but it just, we so much more dominant. Like when we're together, it just it works. I mean, it's just it's perfect.
Congratulations! And how are the kids doing with the transition?
Hey everyone, I want to take a quick break from today's episode to talk about the show's sponsor. Are you retiring or separating from the military soon? Looking for an alternative to the Veterans Group Life Insurance, also known as the VGLI? Reach out to Dan Guzman Life Solutions. Dan is a 27-year United States Air Force veteran and retired command chief. After a lifetime of service, Dan's mission is simple: protect yours. As an independent life insurance producer licensed across multiple states, Dan specializes in helping military families find smart, affordable, term life alternatives to VGLI and insurance policies that fit your life and budget. If you want coverage that makes sense, reach out today at danguzmanlifesolutions.com. The link for that will be in the show notes. Now back to the episode. I appreciate that. They like it more. So my son's actually, his birthday is tomorrow. He'll be 8, but they like, my daughter, and she just turned 14, October 26th. So like right before I officially retired, but they liked it just because it's the simple things. Like this morning, for example, my daughter has a science project due. So it's this big clunky thing that she has to carry in. She didn't want to bring it in on the bus. So the fact that I was able to drive her to school, which wouldn't have been a thing before, right?
Right.
I walk my son to and from the bus stop every single day. on
That's awesome.
everyday.
Those moments that we sort of don't get a chance to do, and perhaps don't even think about when we're in service.
Yeah.
Like now, like, that time will be so precious, right, for both of them, and those memories that you're now going to create, and the passing the torch that you're going to do with them.
Yeah.
It'll be awesome.
If you haven't had a chance, definitely check out my Kurt Warner episode. It's episode 81. It's from June of last year, but he talks about my favorite moment from that episode is, this has been etched into my brain, but what type of practice player are you in your daily life?
Yep. Yeah.
And so I didn't share this on Twitter. Someone else shared this clip, that like 30-second clip on Twitter or whatever, and it sucks because I don't get credit for it. Like, even though it's like someone else, whatever, but someone posted it and it has 1 million like views on Twitter, that thing. And it's such a great moment. And so yeah, that's the practice player. That is my absolute favorite part from that episode.
That reinforces the importance of character.
Mm-hmm.
And how you go about your life matters more so perhaps than just focusing on the outcome of the results. If you focus on the outcome of the results, you get lost in the way you went about getting there. And look at all the people who have been successful in their life, however one might define success, whether it's athletics or military or your business, or you pick your aspect of life. How they go about their business increase the likelihood of the outcome, whichever way it's going to go. Because a lot of things in the outcome you can't control. You can't account for every single thing. But if you are sort of grounded in strong core values and virtues, and more often than not, you're going to achieve the results you hope to achieve. Yeah,
exactly. I was going to do a quick bio about you, like as I get into the episode, but did you just move on from the Bush Center?
I did 2 weeks ago, in fact. So yeah, you could say a former director, recently departed director of Veterans and Military Families at the George W. Bush Institute in Dallas. And now I'm at now leading the Endicott College Center for Civic Participation.
I was going to ask you how to say that.
Endicott, yeah.
And then you're no longer co-hosting the Strategist, is that right?
Yeah, so I was there. Yeah, so that is part of the Bush Center thing. So that's so sometimes I was a guest co-host. Right?
Okay.
So different directors there co-host, like we would co-host certain things. But yeah, I've been on a number of episodes of the Strategist, but Andrew Kaufman is the host there.
Jason, I'm so mad that I missed their contest for Dirk Nowitzki. I was telling my wife that I'm so mad at myself for not paying attention to that. I don't know if you've seen that. They're doing the thing, the live recording or whatever with Dirk Nowitzki, and I was like, oh my goodness.
Well, they postponed it. It got postponed, I think I saw it too. So
did it? Yeah.
I think so. So they might still be, you might not have missed it completely yet.
Yeah.
There might be a second chance, Martin.
I'll have to double check. I'll make sure I got everything recording because that's happened before too. My mic's good. All right. And the good thing about this, it's not live. So if I mess up on the intro, I can always go back and edit it.
Good deal.
1, 2, 3. Contribute as much as possible, as early as possible, for as long as possible. 2 more quotes for you. We have nothing to fear but fear itself. President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Last quote, and certainly not least. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to move forward in spite of it. Nelson Mandela. My guest in this episode of Passing the Torch is Jason Galui, the former director for Veterans and Military Families at the George W. Bush Institute and the director Center for Civic Participation, Endicott College. Throughout a unique military career, Galui led soldiers in combat, taught economics to West Point cadets, advised senior military leaders in the Pentagon, and served in both the Obama and Trump White Houses. As Deputy Executive Secretary of the National Security Council and Chief of Staff to the National Security Advisor, Galui served as a key point of the national security continuity during the 2017 presidential transition. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Army veteran and former guest co-host of the Strategist podcast. Passing the Torch with Jason Galui starts now. First and foremost, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining me.
Well, thanks, Martin. And first and foremost, from me to you, sincere congratulations to you and your family on your retirement last November from the Air Force. Well done.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And November, and thanks for remembering. It was on November 1st, and obviously we met in LA a few weeks before that. And I remember just having dinner, at the hotel and just talking about that. And it's such a great film. Oh God, it's so good. 23 years, just like that. I wouldn't change it for anything, but man, I'm glad it's over.
No, it's a new chapter. You guys can, but I will. You're doing this already, but you all will continue to serve beyond the uniform.
Yeah,
that's what our American experiment requires, really.
It's funny you say that, because I've had so many people ask me, are you gonna, now that you're retired, where's your hair, where's your long hair, where's your beard? So I shaved, I think yesterday. I do shave like every 4 days, not every day, but growing my hair out, I like the look that I have. And this is the haircut I had before I joined the military. So I think, it's just, there's just certain things I don't know that I'll change.
You guys in the Air Force, I used to say to all my Air Force friends, you all have a nice head of hair. You pointed out that I'm an Army veteran. I wish I could grow out my hair. This is it.
Yeah, Air Force, Air Force kept me. There was definitely some lows and some frustrating points, but overall, the Air Force took pretty great care of me and my family. So I can definitely complain about some things, but I'd have to. There's 1,000 more positive things that came as a result. But
for sure.
Yeah. I do want to ask you one question I'd like to start off each podcast with is, why is life great right now?
Why is life great right now? That's a wonderful question. Well, first I would say that I, and my family in particular, we were born in the United States of America. We were born in a land of opportunity, a land where, our ancestors came here for whatever reason, however, and I've been able to have dreams, pursue those dreams.
Yeah.
And I will say, I'm also back in my hometown of Beverly, Massachusetts at Endicott College, a town that I left 30 years ago, well, in 1995. And so went off on this Army journey, retired in 2020. And then 5 years later, after a brief stint in Dallas, to come home, I do feel that life is great, and that I sort of hit the proverbial lottery in terms of getting a wonderful education, having a great family, wonderful education, what I would describe as unimaginable experiences. And now to bring all that experience home with me, with a wonderful wife and 2 kids who are getting ready to launch on their own. Our kids are 19 and 17.
Wow.
Pretty awesome though. I mean, so I think that's a brief description why life is great for the Galui family.
I'm guessing, are you a football fan by chance?
Well, yeah. I mean, I will say, being a kid from Boston, we are, my sports orientation is all Boston sports. It is the city champions, despite what happened on Super Bowl Sunday. But I will also add, before you even jump into this, is that there was a bonus Super Bowl for New England. Where nobody expected the New England Patriots to be back. And in some ways, congratulations, Seattle, a dominant performance.
Yeah.
But great learning for the Patriots, and with a wonderful leader like Coach Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
Man, the potential for this New England run. I was not around the excitement of New England over the last however many years it was. I was in the Army, but just being around it again, you kind of feel it. But there's a little bit of Boston arrogance in the sport world too.
No, for a young quarterback, last time they had a second-year quarterback playing the Super Bowl, that person went on to have a pretty stellar career. Some would say.
Yeah.
So is it? I know I asked you about the Super Bowl. Is it too soon to ask you about the Army-Navy game? Is that too sort of a spot?
It hasn't even happened yet. This is from last. It's in December. I mean, we're in 2026, Martin, and the game is in December. So always looking forward.
Hey, how did you like that Mandela quote that the second quote that the last of 3 quotes that I used?
I mean, love it. I mean, it's what courage is, and aiming towards peace, and it's so easy to be consumed by these intense feelings like fear and anger, frustration. But I think leaders within themselves, and then inspiring others, can overcome those intense fears or those intense emotions, such as fear. So it's okay to be fearful. It's okay to be afraid. That's human. It's what you do. How do you overcome that?
Man, that's so perfect, because I picked that quote based off of a LinkedIn article that you had, or called "Go Outside the Wire and Engage in Community to Escape Fictional Fear." Because I remember talking to you in LA at that conference, just hearing you speak, and then of course to conversing with you one on one, and just hearing your experiences moving toward uncertainty rather than retreating from it. And your your LinkedIn content is very, very good. So
Oh, thank you.
you have a lot of great reflections. And again, go outside the wire and engage in community to escape fictional fear. I bookmarked that one, but there was something I highlighted that I loved. You described fictional fear, and I love that term, fictional fear, as fear rooted in uncertainty and distorted reality. What practices have you seen leaders or citizens use effectively to step outside their wire and replace fear with clarity and hope?
Yeah. Well, thanks for reading it and bookmarking that article.
It's good.
I will, just to kind of give the listeners or viewers a brief sense of it. It really, it struck me actually interestingly. One morning, getting ready to drive into Dallas, my commute was about 70 minutes one way. And there was the night before, there was weather reports that it was going to be freezing rain overnight and the roads were going to be slippery the next day. And I started laying down. My brain started jumping ahead to the next morning, thinking, "Oh no, my commute's going to be rough," and I could feel anxiety and uncertainty and maybe fear jumping into my kind of brewing. Yeah. And I said, "Well, there's nothing I can do about it tonight. Get some good rest. Let's figure out tomorrow when you get up." And I got up in the morning, and again, that was on my mind. Oh my goodness, I wonder what the road's going to be like. And this really strange thought was, hey, go look outside and see what the roads are. Go outside your house and look. And when I did that, the forecasts were not, didn't prove as accurate as they had said. And so the roads were dry. I'm driving to work. Great roads, no problem. I started thinking about where that anger and fear came from, or the fear and uncertainty came from. And for whatever reason, I had a quick, I had a sort of flashback to my time in Iraq. And this was the 2003 deployment. And I remember hearing, explosions and some shots fired outside of our wire. I was on our camp there in between Fallujah and Ramadi, and I could again feel anxiety and uncertainty and fear jumping in. And I found myself being more afraid sitting inside the wire than I would when I was out on patrol. When I was out on patrol and in the midst of it, and close to the explosions and the shooting, I had far less fear. In fact, I felt more at peace with what was going on because of my training and my grounding had prepared me for that. And so it conjured up this idea of this fictional fear where the fear itself is very real. As I said in reflection on the Nelson Mandela quote, though, that's an intense feeling. And I say it's fictional, not because it's not a real feeling, but it's based on incomplete information, uncertainty. And so how to address that fear based on uncertainty is to go find ways to become more certain. And for me in Iraq, it was going outside the wire, go out into the villages, see what's really happening. Just like that morning, waking up to drive to work, go see what the roads are, which then led me to, in today's world, it seems like fear is a driving factor. And it's not unique to our time period. It's historic in nature.
Exactly.
But go out and see, go get engaged. So for citizens, I say, go get engaged in your community, go engage with your neighbors, and your uncertainty will decrease. And as your uncertainty decreases, your fear will too. And the emotion of hope, I think, will emerge. And hope is often said to be the one emotion that's stronger than fear.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to 2008, President Obama's campaign slogan, it was just hope. But just on fear, because in a good way, why is fear a powerful motivator? Or how can in a positive way can fear be a positive, or how can fear be a motivator?
Yeah, it's a motivator. Whether it's positive or negative depends, I think, on the individual. It's how we handle it. You mentioned that previous New England Patriot quarterback who, won a few Super Bowls in New England and then one more in Tampa. And, I've never met him or talked to him, but I'm sure that first Super Bowl, he was fearful and nervous. And he just had an ability to harness those emotions into a positive way. And I think likewise, as individuals, if we can, and I most recently, in one of the books I most recently read was, I reread The Republic by Plato. And in it, Yeah, and it talks.
Man,
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm gonna take. Sorry, if I take notes. That's a good note, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
and one
good.
of the things that Plato writes about, as if he's Socrates, is the ability, to have reason, you know, uh, overcome our spirit or our emotions, right? So how do you ensure that emotions are subordinate to your reason? And so I am also thinking about, at West Point, when you're a plebe, they throw, everyone takes boxing. And when you're
Oh,
standing in that boxing ring across from a classmate of yours who you have no ill will towards, there's a little fear. But as soon as you kind of get in there, you have to find a way to overcome that and think about your training, the techniques. How do I protect myself? The more certain I become in something, or maybe I should say, the less uncertain I become in something, the less fearful I become in something. So if I hear something on the news or I hear a thing, I should go find out for myself. The pursuit of wisdom and knowledge,
mm,
understanding helps me reduce my fears.
that's good. I love that. I'm a big boxing fan, and I always like to use just the example that leadership is like boxing. And if you want to be a good boxer, like you have to accept you're going to get punched in the face. That like you can't. Every great boxer has been punched at least once in the face, but you have to understand like it's not going to be perfect. But what are those jabs? The jabs, you can take a lot of jabs. They can knock you out, but it's rare. But it's those uppercuts and the haymakers, those knockout punches that are going to clean your clock. So you have to. I was always explain to people, look at certain things like, you know what? If I mess this up, this is a jab. This is an uppercut. I can't take, maybe I might be able to take two, maybe three if I'm lucky, but I can take 10 jabs, right? So picking those spots, is this a jab or is this an uppercut?
And to be patient about those, because you just reminded me of one of my boxing matches as a young plebe at West Point. I was boxing, weight wise, we were about the same weight class, but he was
Mhm.
probably, I don't know, feel like 6 or 7 inches bigger than me. Probably not
There's
that
always
much,
those people, right? Like,
maybe not that much taller, but taller than I, such that when he was jabbing, I couldn't, nothing I could do. He kept me at distance. So finally, at some point, I said, I got to do something. I can't just do this for the 3 minutes or 2 minutes of the bout. And so I tried to go around the jab and hit him on the side. And when I did that, to your point, all of a sudden I saw the other hand coming as the uppercut, and just say it taught me a lesson in strategic patience.
and that moment where you're thinking like, Jason, you should have went to the Air Force Academy instead of West Point. No.
I didn't think that. I just thought, you are dumb.
Yeah. No, no, that's good. I want to transition a little bit because I know you've started some new adventures, but up until previously, up until the calendar year this year, you're part of the Bush Center. But one of the things one of the things that we talked about was podcasting when we're in LA together. So please discuss, and I know you were a co-host often or a guest host, but please discuss the strategist, which my spelling check or spell check on my Word document absolutely loves, and it's always got the squiggly lines.
I absolutely love my time at the George W. Bush Presidential Center, and specifically the Bush Institute, where I get to work on veteran and military family policy. But the Strategist is the Bush Center podcast, and so aptly named the Strategist as a
Yeah.
reflection of President and Mrs. Bush, who have taken their roles in America very seriously, but not themselves seriously. And in fact, as I understand it, when they decided on the Strategist as the title, President Bush said something about him having said that, to which the team had to say, well, Mr. President, you actually didn't say strategery. That was Will Ferrell, making a caricature of you on Saturday Night Live, one time, but he
Yeah.
owns it, Strategist. And so that podcast really just brings forth so many wonderful guests, much like your podcast, that
Thank
talk
you.
about a range of issues. And so whether it's veteran military policy or immigration or education, going back to the earlier part of our conversation, if people have a desire to decrease the amount of uncertainty in their life and increase their knowledge and wisdom, I would most certainly, alongside passing the torch with Martin Foster, put the Strategist as a regular listen.
Yeah, and I'm going to link that podcast because I do listen to it now. Ever since, and I mean, the lineup of guests that podcast has had is just,
one of my favorite ones. One of my favorite ones. I mean, all of them that I had a chance to do, I loved. I just had be able to be alongside wonderful guests. But one that was I think if I had to pick my favorite, there's one we did, I think in February of 2024 with Mr. Thomas Jefferson of Colonial Williamsburg.
Yeah.
And we did it at a high school in Prosper, Walnut Grove High School, where my daughter went to school. My wife was the PTO president, but we did it with 4 students and it was just a wonderful discussion on freedom and what it means to, what liberty and freedom mean. And it was really a really wonderful conversation between a founding father, portrayed by Colonial Williamsburg, gentleman named Kurt Smith, and 4 high school kids. It's awesome.
No, I was actually going to bring that up because I thought that was funny, and you talked about him at Operation the Next Mission Summit.
Yeah,
and I think I told you that because I was like, that really stuck with me. But do you recall like everything you said about him, or?
Yes, I mean, I can't recall everything I said.
Paraphrase, but
I guess what stuck out in your mind as to what I might have shared with you back then.
I think just talking about the importance of civic duty, and we did a short video after that because I felt compelled in that moment. And you called, like in a good way, you called me out. You pinpointed because I used the word. I like you. You said I like that you used the word civic duty because I do think that's, I guess, responsibility. There should, like, to me, there's just there's a responsibility for us, I think, as Americans to have something to that.
And I would add to that, it's not just a duty or responsibility. I think it's an obligation. I think, for a lot of our time while we were in uniform, we often were, words were said to us like, thank you for your service. Thank you for providing for my freedom. Freedom isn't free. And I've reflected on that a lot over my, 5 years outside of the Army. And freedom isn't free. That is right. And that's what my academic background is economics. So I think about everything has a price.
Yeah.
Well, freedom has a price, and that price requires well-informed and productively engaged citizens. It's an obligation to preserve our freedoms. And where Jefferson comes into this is, one of the things he talked about and wrote about, and in fact, I've heard Kurt Smith as Mr. Jefferson say, there are 2 great pitfalls to this republic: apathy and ignorance. So one of the things I'm doing at Endicott College through the Center for Civic Participation is still serving my country, not, obviously now in disguise, more so than the Army uniform. But we're tackling apathy and ignorance. You have to care about in our country. You have to be engaged. You have to be well and accurately informed. Which fascinates me today in 2026, we have access to more information than humanity has ever had. And simultaneously, we are perhaps one of the most poorly informed, societies and civilizations because there's so much information out there. It's overwhelming. So you either go nowhere or you fall in your little silo and you don't get the complete picture.
Yeah, agreed. Or stuff that, you look at any big event, 2 days later, it's out of the news cycle or it gets put on page, we'll say page 10 because all these other things have just popped up.
Yeah.
I love that because I've been thinking about a history podcast, getting involved, and I posted something kind of just on a whim. I woke up maybe like 2 or 3 months ago and just felt compelled. And I was thinking a lot about, I love history, especially presidential history. It's so fascinating to me. And I thought, what if, because you talked about we have access to all this information now, and it's easy for people now to judge everything in the past because of everything we know now. But I thought, what if Abraham Lincoln, for example, what if he was able to judge like how we're doing now as a country, looking at what through his lens? And I posted something on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook as well, that I wrote an article just about what if Abraham Lincoln had a podcast. That's what I called it the 4SCORE Pod. And I did that just kind of randomly, like not even thinking, but it became a thing. And people said, hey, like this should be something. So I've been toying with that idea, but I didn't think about even talking to, you said, Mr. Kurt Smith, the Thomas, like that'd be cool, like to do a podcast episode with Thomas Jefferson as well. It was very interesting.
I would say, Kurt Smith, as Thomas Jefferson, he has portrayed Jefferson going on 12 years now. To my knowledge, he's one of 2 people that are full-time Thomas Jeffersons. It's him at Colonial Williamsburg, and then it's Bill Barker, who's the older Jefferson at Monticello. And, I've come to know Kurt really well over the last few years, and he has read all 50,000 of Jefferson's writings. I mean, Kurt is the closest you're going to get in 2026 to Thomas Jefferson. Yeah, I mean, to your point about, what would Mr. Lincoln say, President Lincoln say today, I think he would, there's a lot he would paraphrase from his writings and his speeches. But what comes most pressing to my mind is I think he would say we have a lot of unfinished work to continue to do. He referenced unfinished work at Gettysburg, during the Gettysburg Address. And I think America it will always be an unfinished experiment, an unfinished product, because just in the preamble to our Constitution, we say, it's in order to form a more perfect union. It's like we're asymptotic to perfection. We're never going to get there. But the pursuit of that perfection, to me, is worth the perseverance that previous generations of Americans have endured, and that our current generation has to choose to endure.
Yeah. Did you say for Kurt Smith, does he live at Monticello? Or
he's at Williamsburg. So Williamsburg, okay. Virginia is the younger Jefferson. Monticello is older Jefferson. That's Mr. Bill Barker.
Okay, no, that's I'm gonna look into that, and I'm
happy to connect you to. I mean, that's an easy connection. Martin,
please,
Kurt.
actually, yeah, please.
There's another gentleman that I know, a former, still a mentor of mine. He's, we were taught at West Point together. His name is Ike Smith, and he runs a podcast called The Civic Brief, and he does a few. And I think he relies on a little bit of AI he has conversations with. I don't know if he's done Lincoln or Founding Fathers, but he's basically has AI craft a script, I think. I don't want to get it completely, distorted, but where he walks with history, and he walks with figures as if they're here today, and what would they say about today?
Yeah, someone did AI within the past 12 months where they did a video somehow, and it was George Washington. They were doing a podcast with George Washington. And Washington was dressed in just regular clothes, like a black T-shirt and jeans, and but it was I was like, it's scary how real the the actual video is. But I do think it could be harnessed in a good way. There's some benefit to that, right? But it'd be better to talk to people who have to the two guys you referenced who have read the 50,000 writings versus what's being fed to them. In search engines, unrelated to this, somewhat related, but not serious. I have a tank top that I wear every 4th of July. It's the color itself is night vision goggle green,
okay.
And it has, it's called SEAL Team 1776, and it's George Washington, I think Teddy Roosevelt, I'm pretty sure Jefferson, and I think Madison, and they're all just super jacked and just dressed, and carrying 50 cals and stuff, and it's silly, but it has the Constitution written all over the tank top. But
cool. NVG green.
NVG green. Going back to the Strategist podcast, was there ever a conversation, whether you listened to or when you were on one of the episodes, that fundamentally changed how you think about leadership or national security, and why did it stick with you?
Yeah. I think more so about national security today than leadership. I'm happy to, love to dive into leadership a little bit more.
Yeah.
If soon. But one episode that really sticks out to me is it was with Mr. Tom Shanker. Tom Shanker, longtime newspaper columnist, journalist, editor. He started off at the Chicago Tribune, was the Chicago Tribune correspondent in Moscow in the 80s.
Oh, wow.
I met him when he was at the New York Times, when I worked for General Martin Dempsey, the 18th chairman of the Joint Chiefs, when Tom would come with us on some trips. But he wrote a book a couple of years ago titled Age of Danger. And it was, I think he co-wrote it with, someone named Andrew Hone, who had been, in the Pentagon at some point too. And it was about digits, germs, and storms, sort of the future threats, which don't know borders. And their, sort of thesis was that the kind of some of the fundamental assumptions upon which previous versions of U.S. foreign policy and national security policy were based was that we had very distant borders, and it was very clear we had the Pacific and the Atlantic. and a friendly neighbor to the south and a friendly neighbor to the north. So physically, our borders are pretty safe from foreign incursions. But this book, it just, we're living in an age of danger, increased uncertainty. Now that information can flow across our borders, as we all learned in the pandemic of 2020 and 2019 and 2021, whatever the right timeline is on that, that COVID-19 virus knew no bounds, knew no boundaries. And then, of course, storms, or, who knows what's happening with all of that. We got to think differently. And so I think if we have heightened dangers that we really cannot control, it requires strong leadership to generate collective ways to address these problems. And so leaders, we need people who are going to be true leaders for our community, our country, and the globe.
Yeah, I like that. Just on the subject of leadership, have you noticed any patterns the best strategists actually make, or any patterns for leaders when they're making decisions under pressure?
Yeah, I would say the most effective leaders I've been around, and I've been really fortunate in my career, which is why I describe it as unimaginable. I've been around all four men who've been president of the United States this century. I worked at the National Security Council for President Obama, President Trump, worked on the Council of Economic Advisors under President Trump's first term, was around Vice President Biden. So I wasn't around, Mr. Biden when he was president, but still around the person.
I didn't think about that. I didn't think about that with your relationship to with Biden. That's interesting.
And I've certainly spent the last couple of years at the Bush Institute, and so I think and I go back to my military career. People like General Dempsey, some of my leaders when I was younger. The most effective, I think one of the most common traits or the commonalities across the most effective people where they were grounded in principles. They had principles which help guide them in their decisions, especially in moments of crisis. Because when the crisis hits, it's the trust you've built up is now where you want people to, you want to be able to inspire. In order to inspire somebody, which I believe is what leaders need to do, leaders do, is that you have to inspire them, they must trust you. And so grounding in your principles and values and all your behaviors emanate from those values.
How overlooked is it when people always talk about, hey, here are the 5 things that make great leaders, how overlooked do you think the actual skill an attribute of having a foundation is?
I think it's vastly underestimated. I think it's quite overlooked because it's invisible, and sometimes it's hard to be reflective. It's hard to hold yourself accountable, perhaps. I personally, as a leader, I have my definition of leadership that I sort of built over my life is that leaders inspire commitment in people, teams, and organizations to achieve common goals and objectives for a shared purpose. And I also differentiate between leaders, managers, and bosses. I say leaders inspire commitment, managers extract compliance, and bosses just tell you what to do. Now, a leader sometimes has to be a manager and sometimes has to play the role of a boss. But it's not always true in the other direction, that not all bosses are managers, not all managers are leaders. Yeah. Because that foundation of understanding that your decisions are going to affect so many people in their lives, and recognizing that decisions affect human beings at whatever level, whether it's an Army platoon, which I've been around, I've had the opportunity to lead, and then the President of the United States, whose decisions affect billions of humans. So it's very easy, I think, to point at leaders and their outcomes and what they've achieved and look at all of this. But that is, the tip of the iceberg. To achieve all of that effectively and in an enduring way, I think requires a strong grounding in self.
Yeah. So there's a couple of good notes that I really like. So, you've experienced a lot of transition, both just in your personal, professional life, even recently transitioning from the Bush Center to your new position with Endicott College, transitioning from active duty military to retirement, and then even further on your professional side, the transition within the respective White Houses, if you had to use 3 words to describe like your non-negotiable leadership principles, what would those be?
Love, integrity, respect.
Ooh, that's good.
That's it.
Yeah, that's really good.
Can I have a fourth one? Can I have a fourth one?
Yeah, fourth. For you, yes.
Oh, thank you. Perseverance.
That's underrated too, because even before we really got into this conversation, we were talking about my podcast, and so I'm actually teaching a class here in a couple of weeks. For the longest time, and I wrote a LinkedIn post, and I said I'm teaching clarity, and that clarity has come from all the reps from I've done. So this Thursday I'll be publishing episode 118, and I still cringe at episodes I did 2 weeks ago, right? But I cringe even harder at episodes I did 2 years ago, and I've been podcasting since 2014, so 12 plus years of podcasting. But people ask me, I get asked, Cody, like one person I know you'll know is Cody Keene. We talked about that. You know, it took me 2 years to get him on my podcast. You know, and people, how'd you get him? Well, it took me 2 years, right? How did you get Kurt Warner? It took me 2 years, right? How did you get Jason Galui? Well, I flew out to LA just so I can meet him and talk to him.
Just one conversation. We were there.
Yeah. But it's but perseverance and consistency is just very underrated.
Consistency. Yes. I mean, we joked about my Boston sports orientation, and regardless of what one thinks about the Patriots in the first 20 years of this century, they were consistent, and it was
undeniable.
It's how they did business. Necessarily not without controversy, but I think it. It was a long time, and it was the way you go about every day, the process. And I think you mentioned Kurt Warner. Mm-hmm. I think you said episode 81 where he said, what type of practice player are you? And when you shared that with me, I thought, man, there were some leaders I've been around, or people who were in positions of authority, because you can be in a position of authority and not be a leader. They were not practice players. They weren't good practice players. They only did it in the limelight. I think true leaders, are consistent.
Hey, when did General Dempsey retire?
2015, I believe. Yeah, he assumed the office of chairman in 2011. First term was 2011, 2013, 2013, and 2015. 2015, October. Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it was him, but I watched the retirement ceremony, and I know it was an Army 4-star. I'm pretty sure it was him. Did he sing at the end?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
man, that was a wonderful singer.
Oh, that was incredible. I mean, I was like, what a way to go out. I
will say, and when I reflect on the leaders I've been around, I very often arrive at him being the most effective and the best leader I've ever been around. I had a chance to serve under, and that's including the 4 presidents that I've had to be around, a number of corporate leaders that folks would recognize their names.
Yeah. I want to transition to some miscellaneous topics. There's no rhyme and reason. These questions are going to be kind of a little bit all over the place.
Good.
But you have a very interesting background, and I think, and it's just so unique, right? But I was reading about maximizing veteran success after services.
Yeah.
If you had to if you had the chance to moderate a presidential debate for the general election, what question regarding veteran benefits would you ask both major candidates?
Ooh, what question would I ask? Yeah, this is like, I would, this might be an more abstract and concrete question, but I'd be curious into their response. And that would be, what is the obligation of the United States to care for its veterans after their service? We are a free country that is defended by an all-volunteer force. So what is the obligation of the United States to care for its veterans? And I recognize that question could be responded with a series of talking points that sound good. But I'd be looking for the leader's thoughts. Like, how do they really think about it? And recognize the tension of owning up to the social contract that America makes with its armed forces members who when they become veterans, and also understanding that the financial challenges and burdens of the nation. And kind of how do you think through all of that? It's, I wouldn't be looking for I guess a simple answer would make me sad in that sense.
Man, I'm going to take a note for myself. I like that term, the social contract. That's that's good. That's interesting. That's a little gem right there. All right, here's another question. This is I'm actually most excited about. I was pretty excited about the presidential debate, because I have an interview coming up with a military veteran that I think is gonna. People go like, "Oh my goodness, it's gonna be good," and that's a question I'm gonna ask that person. I haven't shared it with the only person who knows my upcoming schedule is my wife, but it's going to, it's gonna.
As you think about that, just kind of going back to my days at the Bush Institute as Veterans Military Family Director, we think about the VA and what do we the Americans want the VA to be? Is it provide for veterans health care? Is it education benefits? Is there an employment component to it? Is it housing where you get VA home loans? So we asked this VA to do so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, there aren't no real answers to it.
Yeah. It's definitely good. I like that question because I feel like it can go in so many different directions, but also to your point, like there's no definitive thing because it's yes, it's yes to everything. Did you ever watch The West Wing?
I did not. No, I have some old colleagues who have gone back to it. Maybe one day I will, but no, unfortunately.
But you're at least familiar with the show.
Yes. Yep.
If you could center the show on one president, let's just say it was starting from scratch throughout all of our nation's history of presidents. Ooh. If you could center the show on one president, who would it be? And I have my answer, but I'm curious who you would say.
Yeah, I would center it on President Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Ooh. That's good.
Yeah. You?
I don't know why. So my family and I, we have this inside joke that whenever we have stipulations, whenever something goes wrong in our house, like if you bump your head on the counter, you have to save a name, blame a former president, but it has to be before 1960 or whatever. So like no current president. So my 8-year-old, my 7, but soon to be 8-year-old son will stub his toe and he'll be like, James Polk, or just something random.
That's great.
But it's worked out because my kids have this crazy knowledge of presidential history. It's just there's something about that makes them want to learn. Or we were driving a couple weeks ago, and I hit a pothole, and my daughter says, "Thanks a lot, Millard Fillmore."
That's amazing.
And I'm like, who else knows that, right? Like we all, most people could probably name 10 presidents. We all,
right.
But like those random ones.
Your daughter knows Millard Fillmore.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Keeping in line with creating, if you could pick 2 presidents before the year 1900 to co-host a podcast with, who would you pick and why?
I would pick our second and third presidents, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. And the reason why is because they certainly were in office in a similar era. They're around at the founding of our republic, and they go about a dozen years of no contact because of political differences. Sounds a little bit familiar. And then because of the work of Dr. Benjamin Rush of Philadelphia, who begins corresponding with both of them again, brings them back together later years in life. So I would want to hear from them that, why they diverge from each other as humans over challenging issues, and yet how did they overcome it in the later years of life and restored their friendship? So much so that they try to outlive each other. Maybe people are aware of this or not. That they both died July 4th, 1826. Within hours of each other, right? These are 2 men that worked on the Declaration of Independence together. And, on the 50th anniversary of that document, they pass. So those are the 2 presidents I would bring back and want to have a conversation with.
That's a great answer. That's really good. I have to ask: is there any way that Paul Giamatti? Because I could do a podcast with him dressed as John Adams, right? Like, hey, Paul, I need you to get back into character.
Him and Kurt Smith together. You would get
That's what I'm saying. Like
Jefferson and Adams together. Now, that would be. Well, you piqued my interest here. I think we can make it happen. That's what. And again, back to why it's great to be here in America. It says we can have these ideas and dreams, and we can go pursue them and actually make them happen.
If we could I would love to be a part of it, whether I'm hosting or just watching or, holding the camera for everyone. An actual podcast with Paul Giamatti as John Adams, and then either Mr. Bill Barker, or Mr. Kurt Smith as Thomas Jefferson. And I like that. I forgot you talked about that diverging as humans.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some nuggets. I mean, that'd be a solid 2 to 3 hour conversation that would feel, man, that would be.
And I think we need to be reminded as a nation today, as we look at families that within family units, people not talking to each other.
Yeah.
Based on issues that, yes, they are serious and significant issues, but they're being amplified by, I would say, a bit of fiction, right? Mm-hmm. They're being amplified in ways that distort reality, and thus, going back to an earlier part of our conversation, and that it perpetuates this idea of fictional fear. So the way to overcome it is to go get engaged and engage that family member. But as Plato also says on page 4 of the Republic, you cannot persuade someone who won't listen. So we have to know ourselves well enough and be able to be intellectually humble, or have that intellectual humility to say, well, maybe I don't know everything, and maybe let me understand what this other side is, whether that's Adams to Jefferson, Jefferson to Adams, or me with a family member.
I love that, man. That's good. You have so many clippable moments that it's gonna be great. Next, I want to do what I call the name game. I'm going to say there's 3 names I have. The ideas, I'll say the name and just provide a positive sentence or a short summary, like what comes to mind when you hear the name.
Okay, the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, it's just something positive. Yeah, so I'm going to use 3 different names. The first of 3 is Cody Keenan.
Smart, eloquent, punctual, enduring.
Hey, so kind of a sidetrack. When you were in the White House, how much interaction did you have with speechwriters?
So at the National Security Council during the Obama administration, I worked with one of Cody's colleagues, Terry Zolplat. So he was the NSC speechwriter. So Cody and some of the other guys, they were sort of in the West Wing, or I'm sure necessarily where their office was. But for the NSC, we worked through the NSC speechwriter we would provide talking points or review speeches and provide some recommended edits. That's kind of the process.
To me, that's such an underrated, an unthought of job too. When you think about the power of words, the power of speaking, right? And,
yes. Especially from that office, right? That office, the rhetoric that comes out of that office, affects the world.
Yeah. It's their words during the State of the Union, for the most part, right? So,
yeah.
All right. The next name is Dirk Nowitzki.
Dallas basketball player that I sadly do not know much about, other than Dallas has Nowitzki Way, and he's a hero in Dallas.
I only brought that up just because his upcoming thing with the podcast. Yeah. Last name, and certainly not least, President George W. Bush.
Great man, great leader, principled leader. Cares about the American experiment, recognizes the moment of history that we are in, and is a hopeful and optimistic man who, believes that the good in the American people will help the country self-correct, which it has done throughout its history. He's one of the, I mentioned, General Dempsey as being the most effective leader I've been around, best leader. I mean, President Bush isn't, certainly on par with him. Yeah, human. He's also very, very human.
Yeah. Now there's a relatability there, like an endearing. I think that so he was president when I first came in, and So I asked for his certificate for my retirement because since he was president when I first joined.
Our daughter the other day, again, as she's 17, she asked my wife and me the other day, as we get a chance to go back down to Dallas here soon to bid a formal farewell. She asked us about, because my wife was also in the Army and we had gone to Iraq in 2003, and our daughter asked us, were we mad at President Bush for sending us to war? And we said no. I mean, he changed our lives and friends of ours died, but he was a leader and made difficult decisions, which is what leaders do, especially the office of the president. And we just said, no, you can argue all day about policy, but what you knew with certainty with President Bush is what his values were, and his love for the country. And I certainly saw that with President Obama too. Love of country dominated his decision making.
Yeah, absolutely. Just wrapping up, just a final few questions. If there was a giant billboard with your picture on it for the world to see, what would you want your billboard message to say? And where would you want your billboard message to be located?
I would say I want it located here in my hometown, Beverly, Massachusetts. And one billboard message I would say is maybe life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. Something like that. That's
good. That's very good. That's very good. Control the controllable. That's good. So I started with episode 100. I started a tradition where I want to pass the torch between each episode and guest. So what's a quote or a question I can ask a guest, or say a quote in a future episode? If there's a quote that you want, that you like, or a question, I can use that for a future episode. And who knows who it's going to be?
Okay. Well, so a question that also sort of emerged from someone's quote that I keep close to me is, to whoever your next guest is, how do you make it matter?
That's good.
Leave it at that. How do you make it matter?
And that might even be the name of this episode. That's
good. How do you make it matter? Well, just to give credit where credit is certainly due, that's again General Dempsey. Make it matter. It's a favorite coin. My favorite coin on my coin collection is in his retirement. It's the same coin on one side, shaped like a dog tag. One side it's the same that he had as chairman, but the flip side of it says "Make it matter," and it comes out of that line came to him when he was division commander in Iraq, and he was going to memorial ceremonies. And as he tells the story, the first couple he went to, he didn't know what to say to the soldiers who had just lost, a fellow soldier. And then he came to him and one day he said, "Make it matter." And so that's something I keep close to me as I continue to serve the country beyond the uniform. Is I want to make it matter. So to your next guest, how do you make it matter?
Maybe one day it will be General Dempsey, and I'll say that to him. So my very first episode was General John Jumper. He was Air Force Chief of Staff, and so it's never too far out of reach. I feel like I like that. Make it matter. Man, that's solid. That's very good.
And you're making it matter every day. With this, Passing the Torch podcast, and walking your son to the bus stop, taking your daughter's projects to school, and being there for your wife as you guys go through this transition, the roller coaster that she has described. Yeah. We just make it matter. Make your service matter.
Her friend, actually, like a month before my retirement, her friend is, you said the word roller coaster. One of her friends asked her, like, "Hey, how's Martin doing?" And this is like a month before, this was in April, a month before my retirement ceremony. And she was like, "It's like a roller coaster. Pick a day pick an emotion. We're experiencing them all." And it's,
oh yes. Oh, yes.
Jason, what can I do for you? How can I best serve you?
Keep making it matter. Let's keep being you and bringing in wonderful guests who share their experiences and their perspectives on leadership. And I think passing the torch. I mean, I when you first talked to me about this back in LA, I think it's It's amazing. Continue to persevere. I mean, that's I guess my ask of you, if there's such a thing.
Absolutely. Man, thank you so much. It's been an honor to have you on the podcast. I was so excited. I mean, I was pumped up and just amped when I saw you speak in LA at that conference. And then we were able to break bread later on together that night. So here we are 4 months later recording a podcast. And I've been looking so forward to this conversation.
Well, thank you, Martin, for having me. I enjoyed our time out there in LA, and I look forward to this. I've been looking forward to this conversation, but I'm even more excited about the next conversation that we have, whenever and wherever that will be.
In person. Like I'm going to try to do, I'm going to start doing it more in person. So, yeah, but I'm going to stop recording. Go ahead.
Maybe you do one up here at Endicott College. Maybe we do a live one on our stage.
So it's funny you say that, because within recently I started putting in the show notes of my podcast, and I've added, like, I think an intro of my most recent episode. Because I've been thinking, like, what do I bring that's different? Yeah. Because I'm a minimal podcast. I'm literally, my laptop is my brand new laptop that we talked about, is on top of my ironing board. This is where I talk to Kurt Warner. This is where I've talked to generals. This is where I talk to Cody Keenan.
Yes.
This right here, this is my background. This Teddy Roosevelt, Man in the Arena.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I bought this at Fort Stewart, Georgia.
Yeah, my brother-in-law. Army installation, not Air Force, mind you.
Yeah. But some very minimal when it comes to podcasts, right?
Perfect.
But I feel like what I bring is a conversation. And I said, what I've been putting out there is, if someone's looking for someone to host like an event and they want to do a podcast with someone, whether it's their CEO or director or whatever the title is, I can do that, or their guest of honor. Like, I can do that. And I think there's something to, or make it live events. There's something to it.
Absolutely.
And I'm the person for it.
And that brings the humanity back, brings us back to connection, which we need.
Yeah.